Okay, so Pirqe Abayim, as you know, the minhag is during the days of the Omer to study Pirqe Abot, and I want to give you a little information about that. Pirqe Abayim to Dr. Rahabi, and Baruch Hashem that he's with us. After what a story, what a miracle! Wow, really amazing. So, what a best way to celebrate is to enjoy good food with Torah. The food is ancillary to the Torah, but when you have the Torah and then you're eating and you're enjoying words of wisdom while you're in good, what is it, Chinese food? Good Chinese food. I think it's a great combination. So, in Hebrew, there's a word that's translating the word ethics. So ethics is a Greek word. And they say musar. So how do you say ethics in Hebrew? Musar, or etika. Etika is just ethics. There is no real word for ethics in Hebrew, right? Musar is a little different. Musar is to rebuke someone in a positive way, to give somebody some sort of rebuke because you want them to become a better person, so you give him musar. But what's the word for ethics? There is none.
Because they don't have it.
Right. So I want to explain. So as I said, it's a Greek word, and they were the first to study ethics, so the Greeks. And if you read the classics, and you read Aristotle and Plato, they discuss ethics and they discuss morality. And if I had to summarize all of Greek philosophy and all of Greek thinking on the notion of ethics, because they talk about a lot of things, they don't just talk about ethics, but specifically, if I had to summarize the notion of ethics in Greek thinking, I would summarize it as follows. It's good to be good, and it's bad to be bad.
All right.
That's it. That's it. You know everything that Aristotle and Plato say about ethics. I just summarize it for you. And and basically, what's lacking in the Greek writings is specifics. They speak of lofty principles and they speak of generalities. Then how do you specifically employ the ideas of ethics? How does one become an ethical person other than say, I'm ethical? Okay, very nice. Or virtue signaling. Virtue signaling is a great popular endeavor in 21st century America. Everyone wants to virtue signal how great they are. Okay, but what is it that a person can do? So Jewish thinking rejects platitudes. Jewish thinking, Torah thinking, has concrete, specific actions that a person should implement in his or her life for the purpose of becoming an ethical person. We don't need to use the word ethics at that point. We don't need to say be ethical. Rather, just follow the rules that we set forth, the ideas that we set forth, and that's what Pirqe Abot is. Pirqe Abot is the Jewish book on how to become a good person. What concretely can a person do in his or her life to become a good person? That's it. That's what Pirqe Abot is, and that's what we're going to be studying. I see that Albert already has a question. Already.
When it comes to ethics, either in Pirqe Abot or in general, these are man-made ethics as opposed to other parts of Torah which are divine-given?
Right. So first of all, Pirqe Abot is the teachings of the Hachamim. Now, for Am Yisrael, this is important. We're different than every other nation in the following. And certainly we're different than the Greeks, let's say. For the Greeks, they have ideas. And the ideas are out there. And the purpose of the Greek philosopher is to discover the idea that is out there. Jewish thinking is not based upon abstract ideas. Jewish thinking is based upon one 4-letter word, Torah, text. We're interested in text, right? So everything that the Hachamim say, all the wisdom of the Hachamim, is somehow connected with the wisdom of the Torah. There is nothing that the Chachamim say that is just an abstract idea. I have something new that nobody thought of, and it's not connected to anything in the Torah. No, the Torah, and that's why we refer to the Torah as an Es Hayim. Why do we refer to the Torah as a tree of life? Because the tree is always growing. There's always new branches. There's always new developments. There's always new fruit, right? It's not static, right? So the Greek metaphysics is static. It's out there somewhere. You will find the perfect concept of beauty, right? And that's it. Once you discovered it, you discovered it. Or the perfect triangle, right? In Judaism, we have a tree of life. We have the Torah. So to answer your question, Albert, these are ideas of the Chachamim, but they're Torah ideas, right? And any intelligent person, when he reads the Torah, he develops his own ideas and his own thinking on the Torah. That's the beauty of Talmud Torah, is that there is no end to the wisdom that we can derive from the Torah. Hafoch ba v'hafoch ba dekula ba. Always study Torah, always review the Torah, because everything is in the Torah and there's nothing lacking there. Okay?
That would explain why I started Torah, speaking about Torah Sinai.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, because last year we already studied the beginning of chapter 1, rather than repeat the beginning of chapter 1, I want to get to where we got to last year, which is Halacha, let's see, Laban Gamliel Ha'omer, Halacha Tet Zayin. And if you have the paper here, it's on the top of the paper. Laban Gamliel Ha'omer. I also have it in English so that you could all read it in Hebrew and see it in English as you wish. So let's start with Rabban Gamliel. And I'm going to be using this book. And there might be slight variations in the version, because there's always different versions of the Mishnah. So there might be a slight variation here and there. So I'm letting you know that I'm using this book and your text might be a little different. Rabban Gamliel Haya Omer. And we go generation by generation. So the way Pirqe Abot works is we start with Shimon HaSadiq, who was the Kohen Gadol, the high priest in the days of Alexander the Great. And we go generation down to Hillel, to Shammai, and now we have reached Rabban Gamliel, who is the generation after Hillel and Shammai. And we're going to see what words of wisdom does he have to contribute to the discussion. So Rabban Gamliel Omer, Aseh lecha Rav. Okay, already the attentive reader would have a difficulty with what he's saying. Aseh lecha Rav literally make for yourself a Rav. Rav means like a Hakam, a teacher, right? What is the difficulty in this text?
I said, it's supposed to pick up Rav.
Okay, you're right. You're looking, but there is a certain difficulty in the fact that he said this. The difficulty is if you go to earlier in the chapter. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You have to pick out the right Rav.
You have to pick out the right one. The problem is if you go earlier in the chapter to Halacha Vav. Right now we're in Halacha Tet Zayin. If you go to Halacha Vav, which you don't have in your papers, Yehoshua ben Perachia Omer Aseh lecha Rav. He already said it. So what is the contribution of Rabban Gamliel, who says Aseh lecha Rav? And I want to explain that. When Yehoshua ben Perachia was saying Aseh lecha Rav, he's saying that if you want to become a Torah scholar, you must choose a particular methodology. So have a Chacham that you study with and be consistent in understanding the methodology of that Chacham. That's what Yehoshua ben Perachia was talking about when he says Aseh lecha Rav. Rabban Gamliel is saying something else. He's not talking about a person who wants to be a Torah scholar, who wants to be fluent in the Gemara. He's talking about simple, me, you, all of us here sitting in this room. We need someone that we can rely on to tell us what the law is. Not because I want to be a Torah scholar, not because I want to be a genius, but I need somebody to tell me, how do I do this? What do I light? When do I light the nerot on the second day of Yom Tov? I need to ask somebody, is this kosher? Is this hametz? Can I have this on Pesach? Can I keep it in my house? Do I have to get rid of it? Aseh lecha Rav. You understand? Now. And then he says, V'histalek min hasafek. What does histalek min hasafek mean? Remove doubts from your life. So you see the connection? If you have somebody that you go to, who you can rely on, and it should be somebody that you can rely on, right? You don't want any Rav. You want somebody that's intelligent, that's well versed in the sources, who can give you a correct answer. But okay, aseh lecha Rav, and therefore histalek min hasafek. You're going to remove doubt from your life, because David HaMelech says, "Ministarot nakeni." What does ministarot nakeni mean? Gam mizerim hasoch abdecha. He says like this. He says, look, there are certain things, David HaMelech says, that I know about. I have certain faults in my life. I have certain things that I did wrong. And I'm asking you, God, protect me from that. That I get. But then there's nistarot. Nistarot means things that are hidden to me. Because sometimes a person made a mistake. He doesn't know he made a mistake. And because he made a mistake, he may be perhaps suffering. Perhaps he hurt himself spiritually, right? So, histalek min hasafek is very important. You need to have a Rav who can tell you this is a correct halakha, and you know that if he tells you this is a halakha, that is a halakha, and bar minan, you don't put yourself in a situation where you get the wrong advice or the wrong pesak halakha, and then maybe you did something wrong and you don't even know it. So David HaMelech says, "Ministarot nakeni, God, please cleanse me from those hidden things, those hidden sins that I have. Please clean me up from that." So aseh lecha Rav histalek min hasafek is addressing that specific point of David HaMelech. I want to pause here for a moment and mention that the Sephardic tradition of Torah Judaism is based on this. Allow me to explain. What ethnic group do Sephardim come from? Spanish. But there's Syrians also.
They started in Spain.
No, so there's actually in Syria, you had,
Started in Syria.
right, you have, in Syria, you have what's called Musta'arabim, who are always in Syria. And also in North Africa, in the North African communities, you did have Spanish influx, especially after the expulsion, but you had the indigenous Jews who always lived in North Africa. So what is the ethnic group of Sephardim? Many. So the answer is there's many. There's Moroccan, there's Tunisian, there's Libyan, there's Egyptian, there's Syrian, there's from Spain, as you said, there's Sephardim from Spain, there's from Turkey. Okay, so it's not an ethnic group. Okay, very good. So what is the language of the Sephardim? What language?
Ladino.
So Ladino is one language. Syrians don't speak Ladino. Syrians speak Arabic. So we have Arabic, right? We have Hebrew, we have Ladino, we have Spanish. Maybe the ones in Catalonia speak Castilian. Gentlemen.
Yemenite.
Yemen, okay, right, Yemenite. So, gentlemen, so what language unifies the Sephardim? So there is none. So we don't have an ethnicity, and we don't have a particular language. So what makes Sephardim Sephardim? You understand the question?
Mm-hmm.
Any answer? So the answer is that the Sephardim, they are the ones who implemented this Mishnah. Aseh lecha Rav. In the 16th century, the Sephardic communities decided to accept the Horaot of Maran Rabbi Yosef Karo. Kibalnu alenu Horaot Maran. We accepted upon ourselves the Pirqe Halakha of Maran, meaning Rabbi Yosef Karo was one of the great Chachamim in his generation. Wasn't the greatest, by the way. There were some greater ones, but it doesn't matter. For some reason, the Chachamim of that generation said, we want to accept Rabbi Yosef Karo as the authority for all communities around the world. And the Sephardim are those communities that accepted the Shulchan Aruch, Rabbi Yosef Karo. Now because of this, we avoided a lot of the conflicts and disputes and fights and that happened in other communities. Because we were unified by this set of laws called the Shulchan Aruch, a Sephardi in one place would go to, in North Africa, in Tunisia, would go to Eretz Yisrael, go into a Sephardic synagogue. He knew the tefillot, he knew the minhagim, he knew the halachot, he felt comfortable. There was brotherhood, there was happiness. Sephardim in different parts of the world, they were able to transact business. Why? Because they all had the Shposh and Mishpat of the Shulchan Aruch, unifying them. And I know that if we have a common, when you write a contract, one of the issues that has is what's going to be the governing law. If you're from New York, you want the governing law to be New York. Maybe you're somewhere else, you want the governing law to be Washington State. There's always going to be a discussion between the parties. What's the governing law? Okay. Sephardim, we had a governing law. It was Shulchan Aruch. Aseh lecharav. So you see the wisdom of the Sephardic communities was that we implemented the advice contained in this Mishnah. Understood? Okay. Aseh lecharav. Vistalek min hasafek, as we said, and therefore you don't have doubts in your life, in your personal life. And finally, ve'al tarbeh le'aser umadot. Do not get into the habit of taking out, I'm going to explain it more broadly in a moment. Do not get into the habit of, when it's time to take out ma'asrot, doing an estimate. Don't do an estimate. Be precise. Let me explain. So, there is laws of ma'asrot, which has to do with the agricultural products in the land of Israel. And when you have, let's say, a field, back then it was an agrarian society, and it was based on agriculture. And until today, the halacha is, until today we have food, thank God, and we need to eat. So none of this has changed, meaning the laws of ma'asrot, laws of shemitah, but the laws of ma'asrot, once the Mashiach comes and the laws are reinstituted, they will continue to apply. So the idea of ma'aser is that I have to take out certain tithes from the agricultural product. A ma'aser rishon goes to, who knows where ma'aser rishon goes? To the Levi. A ma'aser sheni goes to Jerusalem, you eat in Jerusalem. Then the ma'aser ani goes to the poor person. So now, when it's time to take out the ma'asrot, be very precise. It's not a game. It's not, oh, it's okay, like I took out too little, it's not such a big deal. No, it's actually a very big deal. The Torah said 10%. I took out more than 10%. No, you shouldn't be taking out more than 10%, because there's going to be a certain portion of the food that's not, for example, Ma'aser Sheni has to be eaten b'kedusha in a state of ritual purity and sanctity in Jerusalem. But if you took more than 10%, I did a mitzvah. No, you didn't do a mitzvah. That's a problem. Now that part is really not Ma'aser Sheni, or shouldn't be Ma'aser Sheni. So it says, be precise. There are certain things in life that you have to be precise with. Don't be sloppy in your life when it comes to important things, right? So this can also be with Kibbut Abayim. Parents are bothering me. No, you have an obligation, Kibbut Abayim. Don't be sloppy about the obligation. I'm kind of like respectful to them. No, you have to be very respectful to them, right? My kids, whatever happens, c'est la vie. No. Be precise in the way you raise your children. So this advice is not just with respect to the tithes, but rather it's with respect to how we conduct our lives. So if you have a rav, you have a rabbi, and you have guidance, and you know what the law is, follow the law precisely. Don't be sloppy. Like Shabbat starts at 4:31. I didn't light the Shabbat candle. Okay, it's 4:32. I'm lighting the candle now. It's only a minute after sunset, but minam. God forbid. Right? So, very important. Be precise, be professional. The same way when you run a business, you run it in a professional way. When you run your personal life and your religious integrity should be based on precision. That's the Mishnah. That's what we studied here. Before we go to the next Mishnah, I will take questions if there are any. But try to keep the questions precise and to the point. Thank you for having this. Okay. All right. ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם שהכל היה מדברו.
What happens when a person picks himself a rabbi and he wasn't so happy with the answer he gave him?
Well, it depends why you're not happy. Is it because you're not happy
It
because...
doesn't fall in line with what he was looking for as an answer.
Oh, well, no.
Google it.
It's the truth.
Listen,
He didn't ask the question properly.
He didn't ask the rabbi, and he figures I'm going to ask someone else about this.
Judge something.
right. Look,
Or is it, I said, I picked one and that's it.
well, pick one who's intelligent and competent.
I tried to be very precise with the question.
Right. No, I understand. But now, are you referring to a halachic question or personal matter in your life?
I don't know, I didn't even think about
Okay,
it.
so if it's a halachic
Well,
matter,
it's a personal matter, that's a halakha question on the personal matter of your life. of
yeah,
course.
okay. First of all, if the person is competent and you ask him the question and he gave you a competent answer, that's the answer. You should not be shopping. There's a Gemara in Masechet Eruvin that somebody wants to go to a rabbi and he's always going to try to find the more lenient opinion, right? So, oh, in this case, Hillel is Mekel, I'm going to make Pesach like Hillel. In that case, Shammai is Mekel, I'm going to make Pesach like Shammai. Improper, incorrect. It goes both ways. Then you have people who always want to be stringent and strict and impose upon themselves. So they're always going to go to the rabbi who's Mahmir. No. Find somebody who's competent, who's going to tell you what the law is. This is the law. That's it. Halakha is halakha, end of story. It's not a place for discussion, right? Once you ascertain what the halakha is, then follow the halakha. Like it, not like it, or be aware what the halakha is and violate it knowingly. It's better than fooling yourself and violating it unknowingly. Okay? All right.
Can we say that?
No more Taliban.
It doesn't say haram. In other words, if an expert rabbi in a particular field, if it's medical, issue, whatever it may be, and that's his field, and then in other words,
Okay, fair enough.
In other words, don't think that your rabbi that you pick, I have to go to this rabbi that you've dealt with for 40 years on an issue that he doesn't have that expertise in per se.
Okay, first
Isn't
of
that fair
all,
to say?
you're correct to say that there are some areas that not every rabbi has expertise in. So there are some rabbis, for example, I think that's a great point, that have medical expertise, they understand things that have to do with medicine. I agree with that.
One rabbi that I only went to.
But in general, aseh lecharab. If it's not an area which is outside his area of expertise, he should be the rab that you go to. You should have somebody that you designate for these types of questions. Otherwise, it becomes sloppy and imprecise. That's the point. That's exactly the point. Okay, gentlemen, let us go to the next Mishnah. So that was Rabban Gamliel. We are now going to. I'm sorry.
Another thing, the word they're using, and it could just be the English translation, the same teacher. When you
Right.
go to a doctor, you don't go to a doctor to get taught. You go to a doctor for professional advice.
I like that.
So should we make a distinction between
Yes.
a teacher and a professional advisor?
Yes, and this goes back to what I said at the beginning, where I said that the original Mishnah, Chavav,
Yeah.
said Aseh lecharab, there was referring to a teacher.
Right.
Here was not referring to a teacher. Here is referring to somebody who can guide you in your life. There's a difference between a teacher and a guide.
So here-
I may not understand the laws of Pesach, but I know that the rabbi understands the laws of Pesach, and I trust his opinion, and I'm going to follow his opinion.
Okay.
Right? I mean, I understand it. In the first Mishnah, it was a teacher who's going to teach me the laws of Pesach, so I understand it myself.
Okay.
All right? Yeah. All right. Let us go now to the next Mishnah. Shimon beno Omer. So the son of Rabban Gamliel, his name was Shimon. He was known as Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. And he said as follows: Kol yamai gadalti ben hachamim. My whole life, his father was the Nasi of the Jewish people. His father was the head of the Supreme Court of the Jewish people. And therefore he says, when I was growing up as a child, I was always in the presence of great hachamim. And I have one bit of advice. Velo masati laruf tov ela shetika. You know what the best advice I can give somebody for your body? Meaning, this is not spiritual advice. This is not philosophy. This is not intellectual. This is physical health. You know what the best advice for physical health is?
Zip it.
Yes, who said that? Shetika. Shetika means you don't always need to talk. Okay? Well, that's interesting. Physical health. How does that help a person's health? So let me explain to you. So and I think today we can really understand it. Because today we live in an age of great division. There's tremendous political division. There's a tremendous social division. There's a lot of rage and anger. So I'll give you an example. So I expressed a political opinion that you disagree with. So you have to answer. Now, why do you need to answer? Because it causes certain anger within you to hear an opinion that you disagree with. and it just bothers you, and you become rageful and angry. So that's like the normal dynamics between people. I believe global warming, carbon dioxide is bad. You believe carbon dioxide is good. It's actually good, by the way, scientifically. It increased over the last 30 years. The world's arid areas have become 20% greener, which is actually a remarkable scientific fact from NASA. But it doesn't matter. It's actually unbelievable. Like, who would have thought? But be that as it may. Okay. The point is, and many of you might have gotten angry at what I just said. Okay? Now here's the thing. He's saying as follows. When you impulsively need to always answer somebody you disagree with, or somebody said something and you want to like reject it, that represents a certain anger within the person. And the number one cause of a short life, according to the Shimon ben Gamliel, I'm sorry, is anger. If you have the power to be calm, and you don't need to always answer everything you hear, even if it's wrong, and even if you disagree with it, but you don't get angry, you're calm, you're going to live a much longer life.
I learned something that's interesting with regard to that. They say that every time something happens to you, theoretically, it's coming from God. So therefore, even if it's a bad thing that the guy's saying to you, you should keep your mouth shut because it's coming from God. And therefore, you're just supposed to learn the lesson that you're supposed to learn from it, and that's it.
Number one. And number two, 99% of these arguments are futile. There was a show on Israel, it was called Politica, where people from different political sides of the spectrum would argue with each other.
No, they don't do that.
and you have that in America, of course, where people from different sides of the spectrum, they argue with each other. And I made an observation. The observation is, after decades of watching these political shows, many decades, I never once, never once, in, let's say, it's been going on for what, at least 40 years, never ever saw one person tell me the other person,
I hear you.
oh, I was wrong. I think you have a good point. That never ever happened. So what is the point of these arguments? It's just tension and anger and rage, and I can't stand the fact that you disagree with me, right? It's not a good thing. People, I sometimes put YouTube videos on Torah topics, and I talk about things, and sometimes I say things that people are like, well, why did you say that? Nobody's going to change their mind. I say, I know nobody's going to change their mind. I'm not talking to change people's minds. I'm talking to educate those people who want to be educated, right? So if you want to educate someone, that's okay, if they're willing to be educated. If you're going to try to change someone's mind, don't. It's a waste of time. And it's just going to cause anger. The Harambam, I don't remember where he says this, but I remember reading once in Harambam that he says that in the days of the Mashiach, the longevity will be as it was in the days of Adam and Isham. People used to live close to 1,000 years. So he says, I think in the Get Techiyat HaMetim, he says that when the Mashiach comes and then the world will transform itself, that longevity will increase. Okay? And he says, and I don't remember where he says this point. He says, and the reason that people lived a long life then, and they will live a long life in the days of the Mashiach, is there will be no more rage. Rage, says the Rambam, is the number one cause of death. Obviously, it's not that a person, gets angry and all this, no, that's not what it is. But over the course of time, according to Rambam, it creates unhealthy dissonance within the systems of the body, and little by little it degrades those systems and leads to eventual death.
Also,
So
Adam didn't have a mother-in-law.
I'm so and there's that. Okay, very nice. One second. Okay, yeah.
Did you get rid of one?
All right. So let's continue. Yeah. Number one. So that's what I said. So that's the first piece of advice from Rabban Shimon. Number two, velo hamidrash ikar ela hamaaseh. What's important is not what you say. What's important is how you act, right? Among the Greek philosophers, there was always this notion of do as I say, not as I act. By us, when you study Torah for the purpose of becoming a better person. We don't study Torah to become philosophers or academicians or intellectuals. We study Torah because we want to act properly, right? So he says, Lo ha-midrash ikar. If you're studying in yeshiva all day, great, hats off to you, wonderful, great. But if you're going to just be in the yeshiva all day doing nothing but studying and not go out to the world and bring some good to the world and do good actions, whatever those good actions are, you didn't really accomplish anything. So lo ha-midrash ikar el ha-maaseh. And finally, v'chol ha-marbeh devarim mevi chet. V'chol ha-marbeh devarim mevi chet is a very important notion, and it is as follows. When you speak or when you write, it's important to do so carefully and precisely. Among the Chachamim, one of the great earmarks of Jewish wisdom was the ability to express ideas concisely. For example, one of the, what did you say? Exactly. One of the densest linguistic formulations in all of human history is the Mishnah written by Rabbeinu HaKadosh. The Mishnah written by Rabbeinu HaKadosh is the encapsulation of the entire oral law taught by Moses and based on further expansion over generation after generation after generation. The Torah Shebe'al Peh was a huge amount of material, and it was all condensed into the Shisha Sidre Mishnah. There was a certain power to language when it is dense, right? So if you look, by the way, who is the greatest Hakam ever, I would say Harambam. The most perfect, precise book ever written on Jewish law, the Mishneh Torah, right? And so you will see this among the great Chachamim, that they had this special, unique ability. So Bechol HaMarbeh Devarim Mevi Chet. I want to go back to Lo ha-midrash ikar el ha-maaseh. I'm going to go backwards for a moment. We said that the most important thing is to study for the purpose of acting good. One of the interesting differences that my father noticed when he was young, he started with, he was in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, and he studied with Sephardi Hachamim. And the Sephardi Hachamim, in the Sephardic tradition, we always taught the children Masechet Berachot. The reason we taught the children Masechet Berachot in the Gemara is because it has to do with actual actions. Kriyat Shema. How do you say Kriyat Shema? You have to say it twice a day. Tefillah, prayer. What is the prayer? What is the meaning of the prayer? What is the mental state of a person who's praying? Berachot, the actual blessings, before you eat, after you eat, Birkat Hamazon. Masechet Berachot is also filled with a lot of ethical statements. So in the Sephardic tradition, it was always the practice of the Hachamim teaching the children Masechet Berachot because you can apply it in your day-to-day life. Now, he noticed that when he came to he went because he studied later on at Ashkenazi Yeshivot, and he noticed that they used to teach the children passages from Bava Kama. Like, for example, Shor Shenakachet Hapara. What is the law if an ox gores a cow? And this was in the Ashkenazi tradition. And he studied in Rabbi Kotler's yeshiva in Lakewood. Rabbi Kotler loved my father, and my father was, I think, the first Sephardi to enter the kollel there. But be that as it may, he had some arguments with Rabbi Kotler, friendly, respectful, not God forbid in any way, disrespect, but, arguments that Chachamim often have with each other. And one of the arguments was on this point. Why are you teaching your children Shor Shenagah Kapara? What do they get from that? That should be done later on in the intellectual development. First, teach them Torah so that they can perform the Torah, so that they can actually act upon what they are learning. They're not going to act upon Shor Shenagah Kapara. It doesn't have any relevance to a child. So this is like a discussion, an argument that they have, but nevertheless, the Sephardic tradition was always teach practical wisdom to the children. All right, let's go. Any questions on that? We have the next, we're going to be starting the next Mishnah in a moment, but first I want to see if there's any questions on what we just studied. Okay, good. Let's go to the last Mishnah in this chapter. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, Al Shelosha Devarim Ha'olam Kayam. Civilization. For civilization to continue functioning, because there's many times where civilization it crumbles and humanity devolves into world wars, right? So what is it that allows civilization to continue functioning properly? He says there are three things.
Is this the same Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel? Because it looks like above it wasn't Rabbi.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. It is the no, it's the grandson. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel here. The second one is the grandson of the first one. The father was Rabban Gamliel, in between. The father of the second one, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, his father was Rabban Gamliel the Yavne. He was killed by the Romans, as was actually himself. But apparently, because of that, there was no statement by him. That's the way I understand this. This is during the Roman persecutions. Okay. Anyway, so there are three things. There are three pillars for human civilization. Number one, deen. There must be justice. By justice means a functioning judicial system which judges people according to basic rules of equity. If people do not have access to justice, they become cynical. If justice is only for the rich, then most of society will feel a feeling of repression. Oh, if that rich person gets hurt, he has access to lawyers, they'll pay them tens of millions of dollars. I don't have access to lawyers. This creates a certain bitterness. So you can understand why deen is so important for the functioning of human civilization, right? That's deen, justice. Or if I'm an aggrieved party and I have to go to court, and it'll take me 10 years to win. I mean, again, justice delayed is justice denied. So deen, number one. Number two, emet. Emet means if you have a society where they have these weird, false ideas, and these false ideas, they become part of the public dialogue, the world is flat. The world isn't flat, but it's a lie. There's a lot of falsehoods. I can't say what the falsehoods are because if I did, I'd be attacked. But let's take Galileo. I love Galileo. I mention him a lot. In his days, the truth was that the earth is at the center of the universe. The church fathers said it is so. And that ends the discussion. There was a Dutch optician, I don't remember his name, he invented an odd series of lenses, which we now call a telescope, and Galileo started using the telescope to observe the planet Venus and the planetary motions of other planets, and he comes to the conclusion, and he proves it, that actually the sun is at the center of the universe and not the earth. So it is rather the earth and the other planets that orbit around the sun. It is not the sun and the other planets that orbit around the earth. That was the truth. But Galileo lived in a society where the truth wasn't important. What was important is what the church fathers taught, right? And it didn't matter what evidence he had. It's irrelevant. The evidence is irrelevant. Today, by the way, we live in a society where Israel is condemned. The truth is irrelevant. The truth that Israel, the best way to put it is as Bibi Netanyahu put it a few years ago. I believe it was him. I think it was. And this is the truth. The truth is, and it's an empirical truth, that if the Palestinians ever gave up their weapons and just put all their weapons down and stopped attacking Israel, there will be peace. It's just a fact. Israel never ever started a war against the Palestinians. It is also a fact that if Israel were to put down its weapons, there will be no more Israel, right?
Golda Meir.
Oh, was Golda Meir said that? Okay, fair enough. So the point is that when you have false ideas that become part of the public dialogue, that damages the integrity of a society. It makes people crazy. Because to believe that Israel is the bad party and the Palestinians are somehow victims, you actually have to be deranged. I'm not saying it to be insulting. I mean, you have to be meant to take Larry Davis.
David.
David?
Yeah.
Okay, I mispronounced his name.
He's
Larry David. He just wrote an editorial condemning Bill Maher. Visiting Trump was like visiting Hitler. You don't have to like Trump. I don't know. It's okay. Don't like him. He's not Hitler. He doesn't have concentration camps. He didn't gas anyone. He didn't, whatever. Didn't kill 6 million anyone. Didn't kill 100,000. Didn't even kill 6,000. He's not Hitler. He's a dictator. You want to say he's a dictator? Say he's a dictator. Say whatever you want to about him. But you see, people become mentally deranged. And it's unhealthy for society. Society that has mental derangement of this nature cannot continue to exist. That's called, what is that called? Emet. There has to be some basic truths that underline a society.
But he's still funny.
What? By the way, we can, and this shows that you're not mentally deranged. Meaning the fact that you can disagree with Larry David and still find his Seinfeld or whatever show funny is great. Exactly. We're not obsessively hateful. Okay. Good. All right. Ve'ala shalom. Ve'ala shalom. And finally, there has to be a unifying element within society. The minute that the different elements of society become hateful and violent towards each other, society begins to disintegrate. So these three things: justice based on equity, that's emet, truth; shalom, harmony, love, a feeling of brotherhood, something that unifies the people, the society will continue. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, emet umishpat shalom shiftu b'sha'arechem. Go judge, the judges should judge in a way that brings about truth, equity, and shalom and peace, harmony between the people. That's what an effective leader does. An effective leader engenders harmony and love between the people. All the evil leaders in the world, they try to create dissension and hate between the people. That's this Mishnah. Now, before we go to the next Mishnah, I want to ask a question. Wasn't there somebody else who said, Al Shelosha Devarim Ha'olam Omed? I'm sorry? Who says that?
Who said that? Mikey.
Mikey. Who else said that? Shimon HaSadiq. Shimon HaSadiq, if you go to the beginning of the Pirqe Abot, Larry David, I don't think so. Okay. Shimon HaSadiq, the world stands on three things. Ala Torah, Torah means Torah, right? Ala Avodah, Avodah means worship of God. Ve'al Gemilut Chasadim, and on acts of kindness. So I want to ask a question. Apparently, so it seems, this Mishnah of Shimon HaSadiq, which was the first Mishnah in our chapter, seems to contradict the last Mishnah in our chapter. Again, the first Mishnah says, what are the three things that society stands on? Torah, Avodah, Gemilut Chasadim. Torah, Avodah means service of God, worship of God. Gemilut Chasadim means good deeds, where people are kind, do kindness with each other. And the last Mishnah says something else. It says Din, Emet, and Shalom. Who's right? Is Shimon HaSadiq right, or is Rabban Shimon Gamliel correct? Okay, Shalosha Ve'olam Kayam, Shalosha Devarim Ha'olam Omed. All right, fine.
Well, isn't the Torah
Omed,
the
yeah.
judge? And
Yeah.
isn't the Avodah
Yes, I agree.
right?
I agree.
The last
There
one-
is no contradiction. If you have,
Well, Torah is the judge, because it teaches you the justice.
right, if you have Torah, Torah is a system based upon which the justice or the judges judge the people. So Torah is Din. Okay? You want to be a person who understands truth? Emet? How can you be a person who understands truth? The answer is you worship God. If you sincerely worship God, وَالْعَبْدَ بِخَلِّ بَبْخِمْ Umchol nafshechem. You will see the truth. You will understand the truth. You will not be conned by all of the falsehoods that fill society. That's the second one. And finally, what did Shimon HaTzadik say? Gemilut Hasadim. Gemilut Hasadim, what does it bring? Shalom. Peace and brotherhood between the people. So what Rabban Shimon Gamliel is doing is he is interpreting, or rather giving you the effect of Shimon HaTzadik's teachings. Right? So again, you see here how beautiful the Torah is, that it's always, everything is connected, and all the teachings of the Torah, they expand further and further and further, but they're all connected to the same trunk. Alright? That's Rabban Shimon Gamliel. Before we go to the next Mishnah, we're going to go to 9:15. We will finish at 9:15. But before we do that, are there any questions? Any questions about what we studied until now? This is the end of chapter 1 of Pirqe Abot. We're now going to start chapter 2 of Pirqe Abot.
I have a question. If it's repetitive, why say it? If it means the same, why did he?
No, it doesn't mean the same. He's giving us a different perspective on the same topic. But what he's saying is, let's look at the word din. Torah is more abstract. Torah is the wisdom that we got from Moses, which comes from God. He says implement it, reduce it to the din, to the justice system. Okay, the second thing was avodah. Avodah, what is the result of avodah? Some says that a bunch of Gamliel. Wow, if you worship God, you will see the truth. That's not the same. He's explaining, it's a commentary on the preceding, and so also shalom. Okay, let's continue. Pirqe Et. We're going on to the next generation. Rabbeinu HaKadosh. Rabbeinu HaKadosh was the author of the Mishnah. When we say that Rabbeinu HaKadosh was the author of the Mishnah, we don't mean to say that, for example, William Shakespeare sits down and he writes a book or a play called Othello. So he's doing that on his own. Or for example, who wrote the Harry Potter stories? What's her name?
J.K. Rowling.
Oh, J.K. Rowling, yeah. So J.K. Rowling, she sits down and she comes up with Harry Potter. And she writes these Harry Potter stories. That's not what we mean when we say that Rabbeinu HaKadosh wrote the Mishnah. What we mean is that the Rabbeinu HaKadosh, together with, he was the head of the Supreme Court of Israel, together with the rest of the Chachamim in the Supreme Court of Israel, they finalized the final edition of the written form of the Torah Shebe'al Peh. Rabbeinu HaKadosh was the mastermind behind it, but he didn't do it alone, right? So again, it was done with the consent of the entire nation, or all those sages of Am Yisrael. That's important to know that. All right. So let's continue. Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Rabbi. He asks the following question: Ezohi derech yeshara sheyavor lo ha'adam. What is the correct path that a person? So on Shabbat we have borer. Borer means you have like a mixture, and you're going to remove one thing from another thing. Like I have like fruits, I have cherries and strawberries. I'm going to be borer the strawberries from the cherries. So he says borer, because you have to be very careful in what you do in your life. So what is the straight path that you should choose from other alternatives? Because it's never one alternative. There's always many paths a person can take. So he says all your choices should be based on the following. Number one, it should be something that brings glory to the person who does it. He should feel good. He should feel a sense of glory. By the way, it's a beautiful thing. I love the word tiferet. Tiferet means glory, meaning a human being was created b'selem Elohim. There's a certain kedusha, there's a certain nobility to the human being as a human being. And this nobility is oftentimes overlooked by the Western world, and we just, we're reduced to just, these machines or these animals that we eat and we work and we eat and we sleep and we work and whatever, blah, blah. He says, no. Number one, find that beauty in your soul. Tiferet, that's what the word tiferet means. Tiferet means there's some beautiful nobility within you. Find it. If you're not finding it, you're not living your Selem Elohim. That's number one. So Tiferet le'oseha. And you should feel it when you do it. I mean, of course, studying Torah, it brings a certain nobility to a person without a doubt. It's a beautiful feeling. But there's another thing. V'tiferet lo min adam. What you do shouldn't only feel beautiful and glorious within you. It should be viewed as glorious and beautiful by others. I think in this regard, many of the yeshiva world in Israel that they view serving in the army as somehow a sin or something you're not supposed to do, other than the fact that they're wrong and that they just don't know basic Jewish law. But there's a more fundamental issue, and the more fundamental issue is that Rabbeinu HaKadosh would say that if you're acting in a way that brings a certain revulsion to others, meaning others seeing this type of behavior, they find it to be revolting, then you're not following the Torah, right? Meaning, you may feel great about it. Oh, wow, I feel great. I'm here. I walk into the kollel every day, and I'm studying Torah, and my wife is working, and this is great, and she's working, and I'm here. Okay, you feel great about it. I acknowledge that, but it certainly doesn't look good to people looking from the outside inside. They don't. They're like, what is going on here? Like, what are they doing? Like, how does this make any sense? Why are they not joining in the public service and defending Am Yisrael? And, then they talk against us. So there's a certain element of Rabbeinu HaKadosh that I think is missing today from some of us. That we have to think about not just what we do and how we feel about what we do, but there should be an element within us that says, how does it look to the world? Does this bring glory to society? Does this bring glory to my fellow man? Jack, you had a question?
Oh, maybe they're not studying enough.
Maybe they're not studying enough. Or maybe they're studying too much and their brains are not there. Okay.
That's flawed.
Clogged. All right,
Quick question.
Yeah. And we're going to stop here because I noticed it's already 9, so I'm almost 9:20. Yes, but we'll.
I hear people saying, even public figures, I don't go by what people think of me. I do what I think is right. So is that against Jewish thinking, Jewish hashkafa?
Look.
We should
You
care what other people think of us?
What your public persona should be one that is appealing. Meaning, let's say you have a particular opinion in your mind, right? But it's going to be revolting to others. You shouldn't just express it just like that, because you're not bringing glory to yourself. You're not helping others. You're just going to be revolted. So what Rabbeinu is saying is something very deep. He's saying within you should feel good about what you say and what you do and how you behave and whatever the mission in your life is. But your public persona also should be equally appealing to others around you. That may mean that, for example, if I live in Christian Spain and I'm a Jew, and on the inside I'm going to hide my Judaism, I don't have to express everything outwardly because maybe they'll kill me, right? But the point is, and that's an extreme example, perhaps actually that's not even a good example, because what we're saying is that within the Jewish world, you have to act in a way that is appealing to others so that you bring them closer to the fold and you don't push them away from the fold. So I reject what I said before about for the Jews in Christian Spain. That's a different story, but it is within Jewish society.
So I hear sometimes my Ashkenazi friends calling it, stay away from causing Yechilul Hashem.
Right, of course. We're sensitive to others.
Even to Gentiles.
Yes, we have to be sensitive to others' feelings. Correct. Gentlemen, I see that it's time, so unless you have something, you have a question?
Yeah, I mean, what took place this past Sunday afternoon for Shari Tzion was from Pirqe Karta.
Yeah, I didn't. Oh my gosh!
How do we get through to that?
Just don't bother. Don't bother. You can't.
What's the source?
You can't.
Where are we getting this source from?
There is none. There is none, and it's a good question. There is no source. I just answered it for you. It's made up, but there is whatever. I don't want to say anything. Don't get me started. I'm sorry. Yes, we'll count the Omen. Yes, in a moment. Hold on one second. Let's say Misha Berach first of all.